Hey, this is Gravity Fail, and I know you have a lot of podcasts you could be listening to, so I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you want to check out more tabletop RPG content from me, then check out my Patreon at patreon.com/gravityfail. Link will be in the description below. Or check out your social media of choice and look for GravityFail87. Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Dennis, the creator of SAGAS, the setting and genre agnostic system, as they just finished their Kickstarter. If you're interested in lessons learned from running a Kickstarter, the power of networking, how to stay motivated for your projects, and how to avoid burnout, then take a listen. Just dive right in to this. So do you want to introduce yourself again and what you're working on and where people can find you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dennis. You can find me all over the internet at okayest__DM. I started out with a YouTube channel, OkayestDM, where I make mistakes running games, so you don't have to. Lately I've been working on SAGAS, which is an acronym for Setting and Genre Agnostic System. A couple weeks ago, as of recording this, we funded our Kickstarter. It successfully funded within the last 24 hours, we hit our funding goal. It was very nerve-wracking, but we made it, and I'm super grateful and thankful to everyone that was able to back it while it was live. And in hopefully sometime this year, we are going to have the finished product of SAGAS out and available for download. We need to take the next couple months to make it pretty.
Yeah, so one thing I noticed with SAGAS and the Kickstarter, because I actually saw some TikToks and some other YouTube videos that were actually promoting it, which was cool. I'll have to find them again. They're on my YouTube watch history and send them to you of people who were promoting it, which was really neat to see. But
yeah, I loved seeing all that stuff.
I noticed, like, how do you come up, and this is probably something other people ask when they're doing their Kickstarter, but how do you come up with that end value? Like, how much you want to ask when you're building your Kickstarter? Because it was only 9,000, and then you got over that.
$9,000 was our $9,000 was our goal, and we reached it. We almost got to 10,000, which was amazing, and I'm super thankful. But we chose, or it was mostly me. First of all, budgeting is a lot of math. Like that's the whole thing. Like people get jobs to do this stuff. They're called accountants. So you can go into really, really deep detail of exactly how much money you need to get certain things done. What is necessary? What is the punch list you have to do? What work do you need to get done? Not only for the Kickstarter, but what work needs money to help get it done. And the biggest chunks that I can remember off the top of my head, at least, number one, art. Art is expensive, and the bigger a book you're making, the more art you're going to need. Fortunately for us, the artist that is working with us, Rook Zero, is amazing. He has this huge backlog of character art line drawings that he let us use as placeholders for like the playtest documents, and you can see them in the free playtest that has been available since August of last year, and they're all really, really well done. They're really cool. I already spent some money. Like the first money I spent was commissioning him to do the cover art. But we needed to get, it really helps when a Kickstarter has art on it. Without it, it just looks super plain. It looks like you're not doing any work. And that's almost certainly not true, but that's what it looks like. And that's what matters when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, because it's very much you can have an excellent written document, but people eat with their eyes first, effectively. So if you don't have that beautiful cover and some kind of splash art or something that you can put on your Kickstarter, no one's gonna look at it. Especially if you're like, well, that's why we have the Kickstarter. It's like, no. You gotta show us an example.
That's not quite how it works.
Yeah.
But so most of our budget from that Kickstarter will be going towards art, mostly from Rook, but there's going to be a couple other pieces in there for like landscape arts and splash arts. to make it look very cool and very nice. We've got a layout designer. That's another chunk of it for just art. It's a much smaller chunk than like several dozen character arts, but it is still an expense that you need to consider. You need to either lay it out yourself or hire a layout designer. Um, and the next biggest thing was marketing. I read in a couple of different places that, especially for indie developers and indie games, the marketing budget should be a third of the total budget in order to get the word out there. So that was the biggest risk that I had going into the Kickstarter. I allocated a little under $2,000 of the money I'm expecting to see from that Kickstarter, and had to spend that before we even got the Kickstarter money. So if the Kickstarter failed, I would be out a couple months of rent. So that was the biggest risk I took going into this Kickstarter, because you need to spend the marketing money right before and during the actual Kickstarter to, get the actual plays going and get the advertisements in whatever form you choose to do them. That has to happen during the Kickstarter. Has to happen before you see the pledges come in.
Right. Because I've seen a lot of Kickstarters that have come and gone and failed because they were hoping for that Kickstarter money to do the marketing. It's like, well, you should, like you said, you do it before. No one's going to know you have a Kickstarter if you're not doing it before. Because that's also, now that we are recording, you had mentioned that like marketing was not one of your strong suits. However, I also kind of disagree, because you do a lot of actual plays within your own system. That is great marketing. But where do you feel like you could do better, or something that you notice that you're not doing as well?
Maybe it's not that I'm not good at marketing. I just don't like doing it. It's not fun for me. Like, marketing is something that people get doctorates in. Like, this is a very deep hole that has a very high demand because we live in a capitalist society. That's just the truth of it. And I just didn't like having to convince other people that my game is cool over and over and over, and like for months on end, doing like saying the same, 3 sentences to hundreds of different people. It got old. And don't get me wrong, I love my game. Like, it would be weird if I didn't. But the actual marketing aspect got really, really old, especially towards the end of the Kickstarter. I think that most of my marketing ability is through the network that I have built through the last couple years of tabletop role-playing game content creation. I've made a lot of really cool friends in the last couple years because of doing all this. And I am very, very blessed being able to count so many of these awesome people as my friends, because in the last couple days, I was like, okay, we still have like $3,000 to raise and 48 hours to do it in. And I have not actually reached out to these people yet, because I'm like, well, I feel like, maybe that's being like the friend that it asks too much of another friend, and that's how the relationship dies, because, they don't want you to keep asking stuff of them. That wasn't what happened at all. I literally said, okay, I apologize for the copy and paste thing, but here is what's going on, and I'm asking for your help to, promote this on social media, and that's it. Just do a social media post. The people that responded are wonderful. There were people that were making shorts. They put the energy in to make a video about my game and why it's cool. And it was just super heartwarming to see, and the effect it had was amazing. We skyrocketed past the goal in those 48 hours that we had to. And I think without that outreach and without that willingness of other people to support me and my passion project, it wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have funded the Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's where I think not to make this a marketing podcast, but I think you hit the nail on the head where it's you've built, and that goes back to the actual plays. Like you've built a great network of other tabletop players and people who generally like you, like I do. You know, where it's like you are what you are on stream and during conversations. There's not like, oh geez, comments. It's they like you.
Oh God, this guy again.
This guy.
Really, man?
Yeah. So when and that's really the heart of marketing, because you can have that marketing push. You can do the Google Analytics, whatever promos and pay through the nose.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I've done it just for fun on different things, and it doesn't really boost retention or engagement. You have to have that network where someone is like speaking word of mouth. Like, no,
Yeah.
seriously, go try it, play it. I had fun, they had fun. Look at this stream where we're having fun. Like, this is a great system. You got to do it. This is a great up and coming creator or something, and like just put in
And
the little bit of effort, and you'll have a great time.
right. And that's why word of mouth is like the best possible marketing thing, and you don't actually need any money to do it. You just need friends. Um and that is like it makes such a difference even to me when I see someone saying that their own product is amazing and good versus someone saying that this product I tried is amazing and good. There's a huge difference there. Like obviously the creator's going to want it, and it's obvious that their goal in this situation is to get you to spend your money, give them your money, and that's in many many cases because again, capitalist society, that's all they want. They literally don't want any contact with you except you giving them money, and that's not fun. That's not cool, and that when a viewer sees that and they tend to interpret it that way if it's the creator talking about their own product. If it's someone else saying that this game is cool, wildly different reception. And as evidenced by our last 48 hours of the Kickstarter, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that it was going to be a question of what I thought some of your greatest strengths are, but I think we've already also kind of covered that a little bit because I think, yeah, that legwork that you've done for
Mhm.
years, really, even after you've taken some time off, doing that legwork is the strength that helps any creator like actually succeed. It's you put your money where your mouth is, or whatever saying you want to use. You know, so
Yeah.
how does that feel to have a network? Not that like you own the network, but how does it feel that you have, a good group of friends and other creators that are willing to like throw their 2 cents in?
It's probably up there on some, well, like maybe even the best feeling that I had throughout the entire Kickstarter process. Because I didn't realize exactly how many friends I had until I started doing that outreach. I started looking through my contact, my message history, and saying, okay, you might be interested in this. You'd be interested in this. Oh yeah, you played in that game. Yeah, I'll ask you. And like it's insane like how much this community supports others and itself. It's very much a rising tide lifts all boats situation. There are very few bad eggs across tabletop role-playing game content creation. And I think it's why I've been able to put so much effort into it without burning out, is because of the support system that exists here for everyone that does this kind of content creation. It's just such a welcoming environment. Everybody wants everybody else to succeed, sometimes even more than they care about their own work. It's honestly amazing, and the feeling of seeing that put into practice and having that flood of support and love for something that you made and for you yourself is just brings me to tears. I'm not even
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah. I think how do you manage? Because you had mentioned like burnout. How do you manage staying motivated? Because you've been working on sagas for a while now. Like we talked
Oh
about this
yeah,
a year
yeah.
a year ago, and for most people, they're
We
they're
did.
already on their whatever project by now. But like, how do you stay motivated and stay on task?
Um, so I'm part of a Discord server called Rising Tide. Fantastic group of people. They're all tabletop role playing game content creators across all different spaces of this niche. So layout design, art, writing, publishing. Uh, I've made so many friends through that space. And one of the things that they offer is this weekly goals meeting. And basically every single Wednesday, they have three separate meetings that you can, go to the morning, afternoon, or evening one, depending on your time zone or your work schedule or what have you. And you go there and share what you got done this week, what you plan to get done next week, and how you're going to hold yourself accountable. And starting to actually, even if I wasn't doing meetings, if I can't do the meeting, I'll still like sit down by myself and go through those steps. And it's amazing to see how much work I get done. And I've started developing all these strategies, like subdividing the work so you have more crumpled post-its. It makes you feel like you got a lot of stuff done, even though you might not have spent a lot of time working on it. And I started doing this system. So above my desk, I've got a shelf, and that shelf is supported by a metal bar, and I put magnets on it. And so there's little scraps of paper, all with little to-dos on it. And when I get one of them done, I take it down and crumple it up into a little ball. And it feels so good. I love crumpling paper instead of like crossing something off a list or deleting it on my phone. It's like that little bit of difference was reflected exponentially in my productivity. It also, and I think this is the best part, whenever I feel like I allocate like time to go work on TTRPG stuff in general. And so I don't know what I'm going to work on. I just sit down at my desk and look at this list of to do above my monitors and just pick one that I feel like doing at the time. And I think that has really, really helped me avoid burnout, because whenever I sit down to work on something, I always sit down and start working on something that I want to work on. And that's essentially what burnout is when you're working on something and you don't want to be working on it. Doesn't matter how much fun it's going to be or how much fun it usually is to work on it. If you're not having fun as you're doing it, that's what causes and is the result of burnout. And I think just sitting down and picking from several options really, really helped me avoid it. Also, not spending literally your whole life. Have other things going on,
Yeah,
so you don't
yeah.
have to like think about this 24/7. But I think my post-it note system has been very helpful.
Do you find that that's also helpful keeping sagas in scope? I know that like so scope is when you have a project, because I have a from like business analyst background. You're like, okay, this is the
Yeah.
end goal. We need to get, sagas published. However, with your like live streams and other things, I do see either ideas or comments come flowing out where, oh, that'd be a great mechanic to add or a horror game to add or something. How do you keep all those added ideas and concepts within scope of making sagas?
Um, so scope creep was something that I discovered was a thing a little
Mhm.
bit late in the game. And when I discovered it was a thing, I realized that I actually had been avoiding it as much as possible subconsciously, which is very, very helpful. Because when the scope of a project gets too big, it becomes harder and harder to get done. Um, and so I think one of the things that has helped me, one of the strategies I implemented, like you mentioned, I was doing all these live streams about designing the game, and people were making suggestions in chat and about, oh, you could add this. This would be really cool if you had this in there too. And at the beginning, at least, when it was a little baby project and I didn't really know what was happening with it, I took all of those suggestions. I literally went back in chat to look at them sometimes and say, okay, yeah, this was a really good idea. Or on stream, I'd write down a note in there and start like building the mechanic before moving on. And I think that was helpful at the beginning. But after we started getting a more solidified idea of what Sagas was going to be and what we could and couldn't put into there and still keep under the page counts that we wanted, my approach changed. And it changed into more of like oh, that is a really cool idea. If you have the time to go like put some effort and build that, like we have a content creation where like people do their own Saga stuff and people have been building this stuff. So if you think it's interesting, you can go do something there about it, and maybe someone in there will build it. And usually that would make the idea fall flat very quickly, because the effort to comment on a live stream is absolutely nothing in comparison to building a mechanic. So that was one way. But sometimes the people that came up with these ideas were really, really invested in it. Like we had the two examples that I can think of, well, actually three now. One person really early on wanted there to be like a more fleshed out vehicle system. Because right now Sagas doesn't really have vehicles. It just says, driving abilities that you can take. It has nothing about vehicles in it. And so he went in and said, okay, I'm going to make a vehicle system. And he did. And it's like 10 pages long, just about like different kinds of vehicles and how you would use them in Sagas. And I started looking through it and I'm like, this is really, really cool. But that's 10 pages, and we're trying to keep this rules light. So we are now thinking about doing a vehicle supplement, and we are 100% going to go back into that guy's document and, pick and choose really cool ideas and like, break things and put them back together and modify how we want to make an actual supplement for this. And that's going to be very, very useful and helpful, and we'll give him credit in the actual publication when that comes around. But and there's two other big things that happened that I was like, sure, you can do it, but I don't have the time. One of them was Steve from Rules and Rulings on YouTube. He put together a one-page optional rules list for the My Hero Academia setting. And it was really, really good. I read through the thing. I loved it. He had play tested it with his kids. And I think he has a 5-year-old that made a character by himself in 10 minutes. And the character was an ice dragon, just a dragon that was ice powered. And I use that story to like sell Sagas. Like if a 5-year-old can do this in 10 minutes and make an ice dragon, you can do it too. And so, but that came from a like one pager set of optional rules that he did on his own. I've taken that idea and now I'm working on several other one-pagers with other designers. We've got a Jujutsu Kaisen one. We've got a One Piece one. We've got a Full Metal Alchemist one coming, and we've got a Hunter x Hunter one coming. And those, like, it's all this anime. I've just been on a stint.
Yeah.
And it's been a ton of fun to make these. And the last thing I want to say about Project Scope is that sorry if I'm going on like a really long rambling rant here.
It's good because it is kind of a mixture of like you're staying on project, but at the same point it sounds like you kind of let it creep a little bit, but it's only to go back to that like keeping yourself from burning out. It's like, yeah, of course, like let's go down these like one page hole like rabbit holes to get this new idea out there. And then if it falls flat,
it's not so much work to, exactly. It's not so much work that it'll cause burnout, but it is a little bit of work, and you create something to scratch that itch, and then you're done. it's a really good feeling to like look at something that you created at the end, and it's all these tiny little things, and it's that same feeling over and over and over again. But it's not just game design that suffers from scope creep. It is also the project itself as a whole. Tavernaut wanted to make dice for Sagas specifically, and he's been on it. He's been like making these dice. He made molds. He sent out a survey on the server to gauge interest, like if I'm going to actually sell these and send these out to the fans of Sagas, what should I do to do that? And he keeps checking in with me, making sure like everything's okay, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool, good, yeah, you're good. And I'm looking through like these surveys, these ideas, these pictures that he's posting about of the dice in of the dice that are like after the resin has been cast, the original 3D print of them. And he also just made, he's in the middle of making giant silicone dice for Sagas, like giant bouncy ball dice. And I'm so excited for them to happen, but I'm also very, very happy that I don't have to do any work to have this happen. He originally came to me very early and was like, is there going to be like dice associated with the Saga's Kickstarter? And I'm like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, well, that goes back to kind of scope creep, and then also what you choose for expanding, the stretch goals too.
Yeah, stretch goals, higher tiers of pledges, stuff like that. And when I was doing my research for, figuring out what is a Kickstarter, how does it work, how do you do it well, what are the nightmare stories, that almost all the nightmare stories about Kickstarters that I saw had to do with fulfillment after they funded.
Yep.
And there's, communication with your manufacturer. There's shipping costs. There's all these crazy, like very detrimental variables that can, like, there's so many things that can go wrong, and they so often do, that I said, you know what, for my first project, I'm just not going to handle any of that. Digital only, please.
Yeah. Well, and that happens for a lot of indie creators who are trying to compete with, Wizards of the Coast, Palladium, or all these other larger companies that have massive resources in their back pocket that can be like, oh yeah, we're going to release a set of minis or set of dice. No problem. We already got that. We already do that somewhere in-house. But for you, me, other people, it's like, that's definitely something to think about when it's your first Kickstarter or what limited resources you have. Like, maybe don't do a dice set, full minis, custom leather bound books for certain tiers, like, or I don't know, like something that will be very expensive or cost shipping down the road. Because like you said, that I love reading those horror stories, honestly, of Kickstarters that overpromise.
Yeah, overpromise. Don't like get the budgeting right. Realize that there were hidden expenses elsewhere for things that they needed to like I said, shipping costs or something. And I've heard a lot of the horror stories had to do with the shipping, the shipping ship. The cargo ship that stuck which canal was it? Panama, and caused a shipping crisis in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, a few years. Yeah, that was Panama. I got stuck in there. Yeah.
And a lot of Kickstarters could not deliver on their promises because they didn't get the things in time. So there's like world affecting variables like that. Or there is, like even just like the cost question of it. There's too much going on. So digital first. And one thing that I wanted to bring up in relation to that is physical copies. In general, people are going to want physical copies. I had so many people requesting physical copies during it that I had to literally put it at the top of the Kickstarter story page because people weren't scrolling all the way down to the bottom. They would just post a comment without reading the whole thing. And that's, that's fine. Like I would do that too. I'm a little bit lazy, not gonna lie. But there was so many people that want physical copies of their books. They don't want just a PDF to read off of a screen. And I can relate to that. Like, you know, screen hurts my eyes. I have a desk job. I stare at it all day. I get a headache if I don't have my blue light blocking glasses or something. So one thing that we found, the tool we found to allow us to do that without the headache was DriveThruRPG, who does print on demand. They print it, they don't print the book until it's been paid for by the consumer. And that has just saved us so much headache. Yeah, we're going to suffer, like I'll suffer like a bigger cut that they will be taking from each of those purchases from that profit. But to get rid of that headache, it's 100% worth it, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, things like Amazon, Drive-Thru, DM's Guild, for print on demand, that until you either have your own publishing company or you can order 1,000+ books, like let that headache be someone else's.
Right.
for that. I want to say thank you for watching. This is a mid-interview break. Just a reminder, if you like these kinds of interviews, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. If you're a tabletop podcast creator, artist, or other and would like to be on the show, drop a link to your content below. Or if you think I should interview a podcast, comment below and I'll check them out. If you want to see any of the additional content I make, then check out my Patreon. The link will be in the description below. Enough of this. Let's get back to the interview. To go back a little bit with having outside input, how do you handle input from outside people or influences? Because there's critiques where someone actually reads your material and gives you suggestions or critiques, but then there, like you said, commenting on a live stream takes 0 to little effort versus someone who actually does the work. How do you handle input from outside resources?
Sometimes I just put my salesman hat on and say, hey, that's a really cool idea, I'll consider it, and that's the end. And I never think about it again, not gonna lie.
I'm smiling.
Some ideas,
I
though,
saw
that
you do that a couple times on stream.
Yeah, 100%. I probably did that maybe a dozen times over the course of like this whole thing, because we're not that big. Like we had less than 200 backers. I think maybe. I don't know. I'd have to actually look at it. Definitely less than 300. Still, very small indie developer, first ever project kind of thing. But so there weren't that many times when I had to do that. But sometimes the comment would come in and it would be like, we're pointing out like this actual flaw in the system that needs to be fixed. And like, I'm very, very thankful for those, because there's a good chance that my editor and I wouldn't have caught it. Like, I'm still like, just today, I found a couple of like flaws that are basically typos, but seriously change the rules. I think for one of the talents, I accidentally put both rank 1 and rank 3 were the exact same thing. When rank 3 was supposed to give you something better, supposed to allow a D6, but it said allow a D8. And so literally it's just one digit that needs to be changed, but it's a typo and it needs to be fixed. So for little stuff like that, very, very helpful. For the bigger stuff like, hey, I'd like to see vehicles fleshed out. Sure.
Yeah.
Go do that.
Yeah, write that 10-page document and then we'll look at it.
I'm not gonna lie. When people actually do go through and like design it themselves, I'm blown away, because that takes energy, that takes effort. And if you're putting that kind of effort into my game, that must mean I'm doing something right. But there are instances where I'm part of a couple different, game design servers in Discord. And a lot of people there really enjoy reading through playtests and pointing out flaws, how it could be better, making suggestions. And so I posted my game in those, and the feedback there is wildly different. It is super thoughtful, fleshed out. They come up with a suggestion of how to fix it, not just say, this is a problem. And that I like it and I don't like it. The reason I like it is because it allows us to make a better game. The reason I don't like it is because it takes time to read. Like sometimes, you know, it's a review of one page, but the review of that page is 2 pages long. So like here's my thought process of what's happening, and here's a very thorough explanation of why I think that. Very thankful for that, but it is a lot of work on my part to actually go through those. And there have been like things fixed for that very early on, especially when I was posting that stuff and reading the lengthy feedback pieces. In general, I think it is helpful to keep an open mind of your system is not as good as you want it to be. Some people aren't going to have a problem with that, but some people are going to have a problem with, you know, people coming on stream and saying, "Oh, your system, like this could be better," and they interpret that as your system is bad, and that's not what's being said. But that is what's heard. And I am very thankful that I've been able to take all of this advice and actually seriously consider it and filter through what is valuable to me and to the team and to the development of the game, and what I can toss and throw away. And sometimes it results in me tossing and throwing away a piece of the game itself.
Yeah.
Like being able to kill your darlings is a very important skill to have in game design.
Yep.
And it's been helpful to us for sure.
What with that critique, is there anything that you see a pattern that like maybe it's either pushing Sagas to its mechanical limit, like these people might be saying like, oh hey, you know, in this one area, you know, we need some rules for this. What type of gameplay or player, two different things, are you seeing like pushing Sagas to its limit as far as play?
So Sagas, it's very important to us that Sagas remains true to its own name, setting and genre agnostic system. I want it to be able to do so many different things, and that's very difficult. I didn't realize how difficult it was starting out, but we've stuck with it, and I think we've done a pretty good job of, you know, sticking to our guns there. But there are instances where there are people that, you know, don't enjoy this game. Sagas is designed to help you tell a good story. If you are a person who comes into this with a war game mindset and you think this is going to be strategy and combat, yes, technically it works that way. You can put all the minis on a map. You can count out zones. We do have rules for like ranges of combat that get a little bit nitty gritty that will scratch that itch a little bit. But honestly, Dungeons and Dragons might be more your thing, or Warhammer, or something along those lines where it's actual combat strategy and not role play and acting and telling a story. That's the kind of person that wouldn't enjoy Sagas as much. But I find that in at least my circles, that sort of gameplay is few and far between. So it's not who I'm trying to sell this to. If I was, I'd be on all the Facebook groups for the local wargaming stores and all that stuff. But I never found a foothold there, and that's okay because I'm not trying to sell to those people.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was noticing, like, because I have some friends who like wargaming, I'm like, this is probably not what I would advertise to them, but also I don't suggest them play Dungeons and Dragons either, because that's not what they want. They want to play Warhammer. They want to move mass artillery across the board. I'm like, just go play Stratego or whatever, Risk. Like,
hey,
you're gonna have more fun doing
Stratego and Risk are great games. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love those.
Yeah. But that was the one thing I was thinking. But again, I feel like any, you know, board game, you have board games, it's just like part of the descriptor. Well, this is a dexterity based, or this is a resource management game. It's like, yeah, Sagas is just not a hex crawl strategic war game thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's Sagas is here to help you tell a story like the stories you see in movies,
Yeah,
and I think it
yeah.
does that pretty well.
Yeah, like you said, like having a 5-year-old, that's one of the best like things that people have said about sagas is that it's quick and easy to set up, learn, and you just
Hmm.
start playing. Which honestly, like if you're trying to break someone out, this is my problem. Try and break people out of Dungeons and Dragons into other things.
Yes.
Just give them something like this, give them other like one-page RPGs where it's like, let's just try this other thing, the the constant problem. Not everyone showed up, and we don't want to leave their character behind. So let's play sagas and just do like a quick Pokemon
Hmm.
Digimon thing.
Both of those have been done, and both were
Yep.
wildly well done.
Yeah. That's why I brought it up. I watched those; they're fun.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's where I see like a lot of the power. I'm not telling you how to run your thing, but that's where I see like a lot of the power of sagas is that setting system agnostic. Um, sorry, misspoke it. Settings and genre
It's okay.
agnostic
I
system.
I
Yeah,
honestly I get it wrong
yeah,
sometimes.
but that's
Setting and genre agnostic system,
yeah,
because system agnostic is a thing
yeah,
that people use to sell their supplements. It is a supplement that you can tell this adventure using, Power by the Apocalypse,
mhm,
D&D, any system.
yeah,
Sagas is the opposite, and I get confused with the words sometimes because they're all super similar.
yeah. But yeah, again, just the ability to pick it up and go, and then the progressively making the dice smaller. So like starting out high and then going low helps a
Hmm.
lot. So you don't have to
Hmm.
get new dice or kind of learn things in a different way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
The one other thing you asked was specific mechanics that don't like. There are some genres and settings that don't work as well in sagas as that they would in other games. And the one that keeps coming up, at least in my mind, is mechs. We Sagas has struggled with mechs. We are working on a supplement to, fix that. Here's how you run mechs in Sagas. It's gonna, add a couple rules for if you're doing this kind of setting. And it's for that one, I don't know. We're gonna sell it for, I don't know, $1, $2, maybe even free. I haven't decided yet. Because Sagas itself is going to be a pay what you want core rule book. So like it's going to be super, super accessible. Like I'm not doing this to make bank. I'm doing this because I have a blast doing it. It's so much fun to do this stuff. But we were able to recognize that this player wanted to be like a mech pilot. That was their backstory, and it was in like this multiversal setting. And I was like, all right, cool. Wait, how would that work? Let's put that. Let's make you just the pilot for this story because it's a one shot. And they're like, sure, yeah, fine. But I took that and I held on to it. And I'm like, okay, people do play mechs. Like Lancer is a thing, and it's literally just mechs. Like people are going to want to do this in sagas. I need to figure out a way to make this work. And I think that's the only time we've had like something actually doesn't work in sagas. Because it's been amazing how many things actually do work. Like I was fully expecting Pokemon to just not work at all. But you can play as Pokemon or you can play as trainers, and both work equally well. It's crazy. But yeah, it's been a wild ride trying to figure out and like stay close to matching our title as possible.
yeah, and that's the difficulty with mechs is the going from like the mech suit to out of the mech suit and telling that story both
Hmm.
in and out. Because things like Pacific Rim, Gundam, Robotech, all these other things that people will be drawing inspiration from. Half the gameplay's in the
Yep.
suit and half the gameplay's out of the suit. So
You need to have both, and
yeah,
they both need to work. They
yeah,
both need to be fun.
yeah. So what's something you wish you knew at the start of your Kickstarter versus what you know now?
Um, that's a long list.
Yeah,
It's a very long list.
your top five
I'll pick
or three.
top. We'll pick top two.
Okay.
Number one, and this is true across all Kickstarters that I've seen and especially true for the Sagas Kickstarter that I ran, 80 to 90% of the funding will come in the first 48 hours and the last 48 hours. In between that is just this dead zone, completely flat plateau. Like we got, I think, one backer a day on average throughout those, 26 days in between the beginning and the end. And it was nerve-wracking. It was terrifying, especially since we raised less than half in that first, 48-hour push. So when we were at the halfway point in time, we were still $1,000 short of of the halfway point for funds, and we were constantly below where we needed to be for 80% of the entire campaign. And it was horrifying. I'm not gonna lie. It was nerve-wracking. There were days when I was like, I shouldn't have done this. I'm just gonna lose a ton of money, and that's gonna be it. Maybe I shouldn't even do the project anymore. And that negative self-talk really got to me. But that last push that everyone said was going to happen just naturally, and I decided, if it's going to happen naturally, I'm going to make my push then too. I'm just going to set everything aside until then, do like a little, social media post here and there, but don't put as much energy into it as I did in the first 2 days and the last 2 days. And it worked. Obviously we funded, but there was that very, very scary time. So if you're starting a Kickstarter, go into it expecting that, because if it blindsides you, it's not going to be fun. It can take a real toll on your mental health. Another thing that I would suggest if you are thinking about starting a Kickstarter is marketing for that Kickstarter starts 6 to 8 months before you launch, or longer. And it's not necessarily spending money at that point. At that point, you have to start leveraging and practice leveraging word of mouth. It is during that phase, that half a year before you launch, that you need to focus on, okay, do my research. How am I going to make this work? Let's build a very good looking, Kickstarter. And I mean like graphic design good looking, like visually. Brainstorm these ideas. What are all the stretch goals going to be? And this isn't just for the planning. This is also for, like I said at the beginning, the marketing. Start talking about it. Start telling people that you're going to do a Kickstarter. Make that pre-launch page for the Kickstarter, because a Kickstarter pre-launch page is like basically nothing. It's like a sentence about your game and an image and a button that you can say, notify me on launch. And that's it. It doesn't actually help anyone learn what it is you're selling. It's so minimal. And some people aren't going to like that. If you want a way around it, my suggestion would be to make a landing page, like get a Wix or Squarespace or something and make a page that actually describes what your game is. It's something I wish I had done and I didn't. And we ended up using the actual Kickstarter itself as the landing page, which didn't go too well, to be honest. And I wish we had an actual website. But yeah, I think those are my top two. The trend for when funds are going to come in, first 48 hours and the last 48 hours. And you should start planning and marketing more than half a year before you actually launch.
Yeah, that was the only critique I saw someone give, really, was the landing page, where that would have been helpful to find, because it's easier to find the Kickstarter under OKSDM. But if you type in Sagas, there's a couple other projects also named Sagas, but very different. That's what previous Kickstarters like Triangle Agency and a few others did. They had like their own itch page that was their landing page that then could direct people wherever, and then utilizing.
You mentioned Triangle Agency, and I want to pause because their like Kickstarter page, I know they had their own like actual page, but their Kickstarter story page was fucking brilliant. It was so good and so cool. And it would, because that is so good looking, I found it like after it had funded. All right. And I used that page as like a basis for designing the Sagas one. We used other pages as well, like the Avatar Legends one, the Shadow Dark one. all of these raised more than $1 million or close
Right.
to $1 million for their Kickstarters. And we base our design off of those. But Triangle Agency is still by far my favorite. It's
Yeah.
so cool,
Yeah.
and they've got a vibe that they're going for, and they fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm very excited that I finally get to, like, I'm in a planned stream to play in a Triangle Agency game online finally.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've ever played it, and I'm so excited
Yeah.
because of that Kickstarter page, and that goes to show how powerful, like, that, what someone sees on a Kickstarter can do.
Yeah, because it's you can't obviously talk to everybody, so what you present
Mhm.
is how they'll see you, and they went really hard with the like corporate, uh, the corporate dystopia,
Yeah.
obscure. Like when I
Um,
made my interview video for them, I meticulously went over their Kickstarter video to mimic it, and like not try and one up it, but mimic it as hard as I
that'd be
could.
tough.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. It's on the triangle interview, but I tried really hard to mimic their style, and it was fun. But again,
Yeah.
what that first video or images or even sentence, that's what your people are going to read and see. Make it
Hmm.
count. If it doesn't catch them, just like YouTube and TikTok and all these other things, if it doesn't catch them in that first like 10 to 15 or 30 seconds,
It
it
won't.
won't.
That's fortunately that's not quite true, because sometimes if they see the game for the first 10 seconds and then click away, like, okay, yeah. And then they see it again for that first 10 seconds and click away. Okay, yeah. And they see it a third time, like, okay, this thing is like making the rounds. What is this about? And that's something that I didn't know going into this, is repetition of seeing, like, everybody's talking about this. Very mob mentality, lemmings going off a cliff kind of thing. It works. Like, so for the actual, because one thing we did as part of marketing was sponsoring streams to run sagas. And they did. And we sponsored, half a dozen to a dozen different channels to run this game. And we lost money on every single one of them. Like, we gave them a link and said, okay, this link will track how many people click on it and then donate. It was literally like 20% of the money we had spent to get that stream going turned into pledge funds. And it was really disheartening to see, like, those numbers. But later on, I started reading comments like, oh, I saw that this game was being run on this channel and this channel and this channel, all of which I watch. And that's when I tried to find it myself. So just because they don't click on the link and donate right away doesn't mean it's not doing work, that advertisement. Because that repetition of seeing the ad over and over again, especially in different places with different words said by different people, that makes a difference. That is what those ads, those sponsorships were really paying for, and I think it paid off in the end.
That's actually really interesting. Of how would you, if you were guiding someone else who had made their own system, would you advise them to reach out to live streams and actual plays to ask them to play their system?
Start with people you know and have worked with before. Start by, building that network of friends. That is what saved me in the end. Then there are a lot of, especially larger channels, are going to have base rates. Like, I know Dice Cream Sandwich has a base rate of, I think, like $700 for one short posted on TikTok and Instagram and maybe somewhere else. I will advertise your product in a short video. There's Girls Run These Worlds, amazing channel, also has like a document showing these are our different rates for our different sponsorship services. Those are both bad examples because I didn't actually end up sponsoring either of those channels.
Yeah, but that's good to know, though.
Yeah. So a lot of especially the larger channels are going to have, expected rates, go through those, try to figure out like what this should cost, and find rates that are like, oh no, that's way too much for your view count, or this is a really good deal. Of course I'm going to pay you to, do my thing. But do your research, figure out, what, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a couple cents per view is what I ended up like drawing the line at. And a lot of those are not going to be from actual rate documents. They're going to be actually doing the legwork, reaching out to new people, which can be stressful. But for me, it paid off in several different areas. And sometimes they were like, nah, I don't really want to do a thing with you. Maybe we can do something else. And like leave that door open to do other stuff. Don't just make it like, reach out like you're trying to make a friend, because in the end, that is what you're trying to do. You're trying to expand your network, not just get a channel to sponsor your game. Make it a personal connection.
Well, and that's also the quickest way to close doors you didn't even know are closing, is if you make it transactional. Because if you're just, oh, you don't want to do this thing with me? Okay, never mind. And then they'll tell their friends.
Yeah.
It's the same network. The inverse of what we want.
Like, how do you think these interviews get set up, guys? We talk to each other all the time. We all know each other personally.
What's something that you wish more content creators did? Because it sounds like having kind of that like pricing guide for like if you're going to do a sponsored content is helpful. But what's something else that like you've recently run into that's been really advantageous for either you or you saw someone else do and was like, that's a good idea?
Probably shorts, making short videos. That is especially right now. YouTube is really, really pushing their shorts content over their long form content and live streams. TikTok is still rising. Instagram is still giant. And those three platforms for like content that you can view while scrolling on your phone is where the big data and big media is pushing right now. And I think we should have branched into that more. I think I didn't, because I don't like editing videos. Like I figured that out within the first year of trying to do YouTube. Is like editing videos is a slog, and it's annoying, and it takes fucking forever, and I don't want to do it. So if that is your thing and you do enjoy video editing, do it. Go that route to try to market your product, because it'll probably work, especially if you're good at editing. Like I was talking with, who was it? Will from D&D Shorts. He's fantastic. He's a great guy, very funny, very smart. He was a video editor before he started making YouTube content, and it shows. And there's a reason that meteoric rise happened. Same with Pointy Hat. Like that editing is what makes those channels. And if you are good at it, you can make money off of it, especially through, marketing a product.
Sounds like I need to turn this into 27 shorts, part 1 through 27.
And like you obviously know this. Like I've seen your channel. I know the kind of stuff you put out. You break it into tiny shorts, and I should be doing the same, but I'm not. You know.
That I'll save that for after, because it's a technical thing of what I'm doing next, which already is working. But I'll save that for a side comment.
Secrets.
Super secrets. Is there anything else that you want people to know about Sagas in the next step before we end today?
Our scheduled release for the finalized core rulebook is September of this year. I'm not going to be doing a ton of work on it during that time. because number one, I'm getting married at the end of July, and that's going to be my life for the next several months. And I'm okay with that. I'm very, very happy and very excited. But that means, Saga is going to have to take a back seat. And that's okay because I'm not the one that needs to do the work at this point. We're making the game pretty, which means it's the artists that are going to be doing the work. And so I can afford to do that and still keep the game on track to where it needs to be. We're also going to be working on supplements. So by back seat, I mean like passenger seat, because I'm still going to be doing some stuff. There's going to be, in the Kickstarter, we promised 5 to 10 page supplements, 5 of them. And we have started, doing the base writing for those. I'm very excited. We're still running games in those settings and completing those adventures with new groups to test them out. And there are going to be a ton. Like at the beginning, I mentioned all the anime one-pagers that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing that for a lot of different intellectual properties. We'll probably be doing a Pokemon one. We'll probably be doing a Digimon one. We'll probably be doing like Lord of the Rings and Marvel and, some American IPs as well. And they're just so easy for me to make. One thing that we are toying with, or I say we, I haven't actually vocalized this yet, but I really, really want to do a Sagas game jam where people, like the community, makes these one-pagers like I've been doing, and see what comes out of it, because that would be really, really fun and really cool.
Game jam combined, or the one-pagers combined with one-shots. I would love to see that. So not only here's your one page,
yeah.
but how do you run a one shot with that? Who's the monsters? Who's the NPCs, or so on?
Like, is the one page could be for a setting, or it could be just for that one adventure.
Yeah,
that would work too.
Yeah,
like the sky's the limit. Like, it's one reason I really love Sagas. It's like you can do anything with it. Yeah. It's so cool.
Well, and that's what's also nice to see in the Discord, or your Discord, because I'm in there too, where people are, like you said, they're making their own content already, which that's what makes systems live. That's why 5e was so great, is because everyone and their dog wanted to make content for it before.
Homebrew.
Yeah. So if it's a system that lends itself to be homebrew and easily homebrewed, that's great.
And it's really easy to do so. Like we designed it that way on purpose. There's a reason that there are guidelines for making your own traits, your own struggles, your own talents, your own equipment, everything. Like we put those in there for a reason. We want it to be easy to make your own stuff, especially since like it's impossible for us to include everything in a core rulebook that's only 50 pages long.
Yeah. That is all my questions. Again, where can people find you and Sagas?
Well, you can find me at okayest__DM across all the socials. You can find Sagas right now. The playtest is for free on DriveThruRPG. You can go pick that up. If you are a streamer listening to this and want to run it, reach out to me. You can find my my contact information on my linktree, as well as all of my other work. Well, probably not all of my other work. I haven't updated it in a while. But yeah, if you want like a more up-to-date version of the game, put together a stream, especially if you have like an existing channel, I'd be more than happy to send you a more current copy before the final game gets released in September.
Hear that, people? If you want a more current copy, just make your own stream and watch it, then ask for a copy. But that's everything I have. I want to say thank you again. So I wanted to give a little bit of a summary after the interview. This was a great conversation and a welcomed reminder for me that we talk a lot about social media and the toxic nature of it. But I wanted to highlight that it's what you put into it. As you network and build your relationships, it's important to find people who mesh with you and can be honest while keeping you accountable for your work. While many of the points Dennis brought up were valid, I wanted to reiterate that repetition of your work, sharing it, and not being afraid to market is okay. We're all out here trying to play and have fun, and it's okay to talk about your accomplishments and projects. Lastly, I thought it was important to remind any future or current content creator that you need to realize what is in scope for your project and focus on that. Make sure to divide your labor into bite-sized segments, and it's okay to skip or bounce around to avoid burnout. And above all, I hope you all had fun, and remember to be kind and roll well.